Did you get your word in today? Don't let it slip away. Come on over, don't delay. Daily in the Word, KJV.
On a quiet country morning, the front porch was warm with soft golden light. Bear lay stretched out on the wooden boards, his rich brown coat glowing in the sunrise, a purple bandana resting gently around his neck. Beside him, Shy, the husky with one blue eye and one brown, sat tall and still, her ears turning at every little sound. Kit Kat, the fluffy black and white cat, was curled near an open Bible, her tail wrapped neatly around her paws. The farm was waking up. Chickens clucked and scratched in the dirt. Ducks waddled in a noisy line toward the pond. A few geese honked as they moved together across the yard. Everyone seemed to have their place. Everyone except one. Out by the far fence stood a rooster. His name was Steve. Steve was different from the others. His feathers were dark and glossy, almost black in the morning light, and soft plumes covered his legs all the way down to his feet. While the other roosters strutted proudly in groups, Steve stood apart, quiet, still, watching. Every now and then he would take a few careful steps forward as if he might join the others. But the chickens would drift away. The ducks would shuffle off in another direction. Even the geese he once followed no longer made space for him. So Steve stopped trying. He stayed near the fence, pecking at the ground alone. Bear lifted his head and watched him closely. Shy followed his gaze, her ears tilting forward. Kit Kat blinked slowly, then turned her eyes toward the field. For a moment, none of them moved. The breeze rustled through the grass, and Bear, with a quiet heaviness in his chest, began to think. Sometimes, it isn't loud words that hurt the most. It's the quiet kind of being left out. The kind where no one is unkind, but no one pulls you in either. Steve gave a small flutter of his wings, then settled again, alone. And if a heart isn't careful, it can start to wonder. Is something wrong with me? Bear slowly pushed himself up to sit. The porch creaked softly beneath him. Shy stood beside him, steady and watchful. Kit Kat stretched, then sat up, her whiskers twitching. Bear looked out at Steve again, and deep down he remembered something true. The Bible says in Psalm 139:14 that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That means God was careful when he made each one of us. Thoughtful, intentional, on purpose. Steve wasn't a mistake. Not his feathers, not his differences, not even the way he stood apart. Bear stepped down off the porch, his paws pressed gently into the dirt. Shy followed just behind him, quiet and loyal. Kit Kat hopped down last, landing softly and padding forward with slow, graceful steps. Out in the yard, the other animals kept moving in their groups, circles within circles, never noticing who was missing. Bear paused for a moment, then kept walking. Because sometimes, not fitting in doesn't mean you're out of place. It might mean you weren't made for that place to begin with. Different doesn't mean less. It doesn't mean something is wrong. Sometimes, it just means you were set apart on purpose. Steve noticed them coming. He lifted his head slightly, unsure. Bear didn't rush. He simply walked until he was close, and then sat down in the grass beside him. Shy settled on the other side, calm and steady. Kit Kat curled up nearby, her tail flicking once before going still. For a moment, no one said anything. The wind moved gently through the field. Something small, but meaningful, began to change. Even though the other animals had walked away, Steve hadn't been forgotten. The Lord had seen him the whole time, every quiet step, every lonely moment. And just like he promises that he will never leave us or forsake us, he was already making a way for Steve not to be alone, not by changing who he was, but by bringing the right ones near. Bear sat beside him, Shy rested close, Kit Kat curled in. And just like that, Steve wasn't standing by himself anymore. He lifted his head just a little higher, not because everything around him had changed, but because something inside had. And maybe, just maybe, the question was never why Steve didn't fit in. Maybe the real question was, who would choose to go sit with him? Because sometimes the most loving thing we can do is notice the one others overlook and make room.